Welcome to the Becoming Superhuman podcast, where we interview extraordinary people to bring you the skills and strategies to overcome the impossible. And now, here's your host, Jonathan Levy.
Before we get started, I want to tell you about an absolutely crazy idea that I recently had. You see, every single week on the Becoming Superhuman podcast, we share with you some incredible idea that can change your life, whether that's meditation or the paleo diet or Tai Chi or lucid dreaming. But the thing is, how much do you actually implement in your everyday life? 10%? 20%? And you're not alone. I mean, even I, as the host of the podcast, am lucky if I implement 20 or 30% of what we talk about on this show. Why is that? Well, first off, in order to implement, we need more than a week. We need more like a month or even 2 months. We need community of people supporting us, cheering us on, and we need actual guidance from the experts beyond just a 1-hour podcast. So I had a crazy idea. What if we got everybody together in a members-only group, and then we committed to one another that we were going to take on a new challenge every month? 1 month, we would all commit to lucid dreaming. Another month, we would all commit to improving our willpower. Another month, we might all try to wake up at 5:30 in the morning. So I put this idea out there and we got over 100 people committed and involved. And here's what it looks like. In addition to a regular monthly challenge, we also send out all the gear, all the books, all the whatever that you need to complete that monthly challenge in the mail and in your email. We then have an expert, one of the 200 world-renowned experts that we've had on the show, come into the private group and teach a lesson every single week for a month so that we can actually implement what we're learning. We already have started developing the first challenges. We're working on a lucid dreaming challenge. We're working on a willpower challenge and many, many more. So I want to invite you to come try this out. Join us. There are over 100 of us doing these challenges, and we would love to have you participate with us. So to join this new crazy experiment that we're calling the Becoming Superhuman Mastermind, please visit jle.vi/mastermind. We can't wait to see what you achieve. Greetings, super friends, and welcome to this week's episode, which is brought to you thanks to a 1-star review from Moonjobs of the United States of America. Title, Dudes Laughing at Their Own Lame Jokes. Interesting topics, but these guys take forever and a day going through formulaic banter to get to the point. Well, thank you for your opinion, Moonjobs. Do you guys agree? If you don't agree, go ahead and leave us an amazing 5-star review if you appreciate the, what I call, witty banter and awesome content that we're putting out every single week. On to today's episode. You guys, today we are joined by Allison Maslan. She is a fellow Genius Network member, the CEO of Pinnacle Global Network, the world leader in scaling businesses, and she's the author of the new Wall Street Journal bestseller, Scale or Fail. In addition to that, she has started 10 successful businesses starting out at age 18. She is an accomplished trapeze artist and has a background in not only homeopathy, but many other very interesting topics that we get into on the show. You have seen Allison in Success, Fortune, Inc., Fast Company, Forbes, and many, many more, as well as being a featured expert on ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, and many, many more. Now, on this episode, I wanted to understand how Allison has maintained such high performance throughout her career. I know we don't normally talk about business topics, but we got into that a little bit. We got into self-care a little bit, and I had a understanding just of what makes her tick and how she's able to motivate and drive herself to accomplish so much. And at the end of the day, that is what this show is all about. So, without any further ado, allow me to introduce you all to my new super friend, Allison Maslan. Allison, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. So excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really, really glad we're going to finally get a chance to have more than a 5 or 10 minute in passing conversation in the hallway. And I have to admit, I've wanted to hear about your whole story. I'm about halfway through your book, but I've wanted to ask you so many questions. So I'm excited that I finally get your undivided attention.
Well, great. Let's dive in.
So, Allison, for those who don't have the pleasure of running into you 3 to 4 times a year at Genius Network, tell us a little bit about your story, how you got into entrepreneurship, who you are, what you do.
Well, I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. My father built the largest women's clothing chain in the United States from 1955, as my grandfather had a store in Kansas City. And then my dad grew it across the country through the early 80s. And so I really grew up with this spirit of, if you want something, go create it yourself. And it wasn't anything specifically that my dad told me necessarily, but it was being around his energy and his passion for what he did every single day that I believe that really infused onto me. And so I started my first business when I was 19 in college, and I was doing personalized poems. I had a business called Expressions by Allie, and for gifts, birthdays and anniversaries and such. And it took off, and I thought, oh my goodness, I found my calling. I'm going to be a poet. And, that was short-lived, but but that was my start into the entrepreneurial world. And then over the next several years, that evolved into a full-service advertising and public relations firm doing television, radio, all kinds of things, even though I really had absolutely no clue on how to do any of it. But I knew that if I just say yes and I had my back against the wall, then I would figure out how to get it done. And so that's really how everything started.
Wow. Now, where do you think that tenacity, that boldness came from? Because I think a lot of us entrepreneurs do that. We sell something that doesn't exist yet. And it's, I've always tried to figure out if that's something we're born with or something we're taught.
That's a really good question. And I was actually having a conversation at lunch with someone over the weekend, and we were talking about this whole sort of spiritual idea of, do we choose the parents that we have, that we come into this life for to learn certain lessons? I would say for sure, I get a lot of it from my dad, and we are a lot alike. So I think that stubbornness is probably the persistence, I say, is stubbornness all dressed up. So I definitely can be stubborn. But hey, I'm also very responsible. So if I make a commitment and I say I'm going to do something, even if I don't know how to do it, I'll figure out a way. And I think with business owners, especially early stage business owners, they feel like they have to have it all figured out before they start. And so they never really get out of the gate. So it's kind of like throwing your hat into the ring and saying, okay, I'm in, I'm going for it.
Yeah, it's kind of like Joe Polish always says, I think it's Joe who says it, entrepreneurship is learning how to fly the plane while it's in midair, or learning how to build the racetrack while you're running the race kind of thing.
Yeah, build the plane while you fly it.
There you go. That sounds a lot better. So you built up this agency flying by the seat of your pants, and then what happened? I mean, I'm trying to ask the question as if I don't know what happened, because I've been really enjoying your book. So,
okay. Well, it grew fast. We had clients like Ben & Jerry's and Supercuts and Charlotte Russe, and was making a lot of money. I was about 25 years old at the time, traveling all over the place. But my daughter was not even 2 years old yet. And I was, managing this business. And as you said, I could fly by the seat of my pants, but I didn't understand, Jonathan, I didn't understand how to scale a business. I didn't understand how to delegate, build a team, put systems in place, all of those things that are going to help a business grow in a healthy way to sustain. And I fell apart. I was a mess. I was working day and night. I had no life. I was depressed, exhausted. And I thought, this is success. This is what I've been working so hard for. Not feeling so good here.
Wow.
Yeah. I ended up having a car accident. Really, that was my big wake up call, because I almost died. And I just said, okay, this is it. The universe is screaming at me right now. I better listen. And so I walked away from that business. I pretty much handed it over to my partner. It's kind of naive back then. And walked away from a difficult marriage as well. And just, said, okay, I'm starting over. I'm starting fresh.
And this is why I wanted to have you on a show called Becoming Superhuman, because you have overcome a lot. And doing all of that with a young child, where did you begin? I mean, what were the first things that you did when you started to rebuild from nothing?
Well, I gave myself time, which I think is that when I look back now, that was a bold move, because I think our tendency is to jump right back in and go, okay, I'm going to do this thing now, before you've had time to really look at what the heck just happened. So I took an entire year to figure out what was I doing right, because there were a lot of things that were working, and what was I doing wrong. And I began to study a lot of the clients that I had worked with, Fortune 100 companies, and really looked at the underpinnings of their business. How do they structure? How do they scale? Because I loved business. I knew I couldn't keep a job more than 2 weeks. So that was just not going to happen. I was basically unemployable. So I knew I needed to figure this thing out. And I loved business. I just I wanted to have a life. I live in this beautiful city, San Diego. I'd be driving by the beach and I'd see people on the beach going, how do they get to do that? And I thought, well, yeah, I need to figure that out. And so that's what I did. I just really took the time to make the right decisions before I went into my next business. And then, I went on and built 9 more companies over 3 decades. So, a lot more lessons, of course, along the way. But that was my big change, where I built this blueprint for growth and a blueprint for scaling that I have, evolved along the way, and that I share now in my book, Scale or Fail.
I love that. And this is such an important lesson. That the first thing you said, I think, is so important that it bears repeating. And we had Ben Hardy, our mutual friend, leading in our mastermind a whole challenge about willpower doesn't work and about setting your environment up for future success. And one of the biggest takeaways was exactly what you said, which is recovery is so important. And I think the types of people that we are and that likely listen to this show, we push ourselves and we push ourselves. And you said it best yourself. It was a bold move to take a year off to heal, but it shouldn't be, right? That should be the obvious decision. But in our society, that's a bold move. And I think that speaks volumes about the way that we try to live our lives, right?
Yeah. Well, it was also preservation, because I didn't have a lot left at that point. I was extremely run down. And that led me to my next business, which was homeopathy and homeopathic medicine, which I used at the time to really heal and get it back in balance. And I was so taken by homeopathy, and it made so much sense to me that I wanted to learn. And so I went back to school to study homeopathy, and then ultimately opened up my own practice, then built the Homeopathic Academy of Southern California, which is a 3-year certification program, and, is still alive today. I sold that in 2005, but it's still running today and training people, helping people. So it's, here I had that car accident and my life seemed to kind of fall apart. But you don't really see the wisdom in the moments and the magic that's ahead of you. But you've got to have faith that there is a bigger plan. And, you just got to take that one step at a time.
I also want to point out for folks who don't know that you've talked about having a car accident, which threatened your life. You've talked about needing to heal through homeopathy. You're also an accomplished trapeze artist, which I think is so incredible.
Yeah.
And you maintain this, right?
I do. It is my big passion outside of my family and my business. I've been flying on the trapeze for 20 years. So yeah, it's a blast. And I built one in my backyard about a year ago, which was a big dream of mine. And we bought a property a couple of years ago that had enough acreage to be able to put this big swing set up. And it's just a blast. I used to drive like 3 hours every week to LA to train. Now I just walk out my back door and climb the ladder.
That is so cool. And the reason I wanted our audience to know that is because you are clearly in optimal health mentally and physically, despite, working yourself to the bone in your 20s and stuff like that. Tell me about the homeopathy. I mean, we haven't covered homeopathy as much as we probably should on the show. And I would love to hear, from the founder of an organization that trains homeopathic healers, what it's about and what intrigued you about it.
Well, I grew up in the Midwest in the U.S., and my mom used to rush me to the doctor for every little thing. I didn't know what holistic was. When I started that, going down that path, my mom thought I had joined a religious cult. She just was like, what the heck? And homeopathy's been around for over 200 years. And in Washington, D.C., the only monument to a doctor, and one of the largest monuments, is to Samuel Hahnemann, who was an MD and the founder of homeopathy. He's from Germany. And I really believe homeopathy was ahead of its time. The homeopathic remedies, there are about 4,000 of them, and they are FDA approved. Most people don't know that. But it really is a medicine that treats the person, not the disease. So whatever it is that you're experiencing physically that you would go to the doctor for, homeopathy can treat. And it really is about bringing the mind and the body, all into balance. And when your system is stronger, when you're more resilient, your immune system goes up. You could be exposed to all kinds of things, but if your system is strong, then you're not going to get sick. It really helped me at the time become more confident. After going through that period, my confidence was really struggling. Also going through a divorce, so I had a lot of grief and, fear, just, of course, normal emotions. And it really helped me ground myself. And I still use I don't practice anymore, but I still use it today. And I rarely get sick. There's so much more to it that I talk a little bit about it in the book, but it really is a way of life. And for the pace that I go, which is pretty strong, and I like operating at that level, I don't think that I would have been able to do that all these years without homeopathy.
Give me an example of a homeopathic treatment that people can safely try at home as an alternative for a common kind of small malady. Is there such a thing, or is this something that they really should reach out to a professional?
You can take things acutely. You can go into the health food store, Whole Foods, things like that, and take acutely. When you go to a homeopath, it's more, we call it a constitution, where they find the one remedy that fits the whole person, and that really puts your whole system into balance. It's very hard to self-diagnose, even for myself. But here's a perfect example. So one of the remedies is called Apis mellifica. All of the remedies are Latin names, and it's made from the honeybee. And no animals are killed, and any of that with homeopathy. But this is from the particles of the honeybee. So if you get stung by a bee, what happens? It gets red, it gets swollen, it's a stinging feeling. And so if you have, for instance, a sore throat that feels swollen, red, and stinging feeling, you would take Apis, the remedy Apis, and that, because the body cannot hold two like diseases. You're taking something that creates the same symptoms that the body's already experiencing. One cancels out the other. So then your sore throat goes away.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating. And you're not taking some kind of artificial crap.
Exactly. And it's working. So homeopathy means same disease. Allopathy, which is Western medicine, is opposite disease. So it's working with the body to bring it into balance. So it's very gentle. It's safe for babies and pregnant women as well. And I'm not saying, don't go to the hospital if you're having an emergency. I'm all about working together and, finding the best of both.
Mm-hmm. All right. At this point, I want to pause and take a moment to thank our sponsor, Four Sigmatic, who is making it easy for everyday people to unlock the incredible health benefits of mushrooms. I originally learned about Four Sigmatic when I met their founder at a conference in 2015, and I have been pretty much obsessed with their products ever since. Personally, I use their reishi mushroom tea most nights for an all-natural sleep aid. I carry their chaga immunity blend anytime I travel. And I've also pretty much switched out my usual coffee or yerba mate for their unbelievably awesome mushroom coffee, either in ground or in instant form. Now, what I love about the mushroom coffee is that it combines chaga for immune support with lion's mane for intense focus. And because of that, I actually find it to be more effective than most nootropics or stimulants, including Ritalin, despite having only 40 milligrams of caffeine. It's honestly insane. If you haven't tried out their products, I strongly recommend you do so. And to encourage you to give them a try, we've actually teamed up with Four Sigmatic to bring you an incredible 15% discount. To take advantage of that, just visit foursigmatic.com/superhuman today. All right, back to the show. So that covers, I think, 2 businesses. Tell me about some of the other businesses, because this is the part when I was reading your book. Obviously, your book is about scaling businesses, and I want to get to that. But your bio is so fascinating that I just wish that there were like an extra 2 chapters just about all the stuff that you did getting to the point of writing the book. So tell us a little bit more about all the businesses that you've started throughout your career.
So I love business and I get excited. And so if I have a passion with something, I kind of take that direction. Mm-hmm. I've sold 4 of my companies, and the company that I'm running now is called Pinnacle Global Network. And we mentor business owners all over the world to grow and scale their companies. We have an amazing community, and I get to take all the wisdom from these past businesses and pay it forward. And I have a team of mentors that work with me that have also run successful companies. So that's what I'm doing now. I've been doing that for the last almost 10 years. But some of the other companies, a jewelry and accessory manufacturing company, a software company, a real estate investment company, a scuba diving certification company, of course, the homeopathic practice, the homeopathic school. Now I can't think of.
There's too many to remember.
Yeah.
That's a good position to be in.
Yeah. But I love all the different models. I love manufacturing. I love brick and mortar chains. Oh, beauty salons. I had a chain of beauty salons. That was the one I was missing.
No kidding. So, what blows me away is exactly that, is the range. And when someone reads your book, which I highly recommend people check out, and I've been really enjoying it, you really get the sense that you understand business, period. And I understand internet business. I've never made a dollar, Allison, that's not on the internet. Not a single dollar. Maybe like mowing lawns when I was a kid, but since I was 16 years old, I've never made a dollar that hasn't in some way, shape, or form gone through the internet. And I'm at a disadvantage, and you clearly understand so many different aspects of so many different businesses. What would you say has been your favorite? And for those in the audience looking to get into a business, in which direction would you point them?
Oh my gosh. Well, that's why business is so great, because you get to be the artist. You get to find something that resonates with you. Some people really like a brick and mortar. They like a place to go to. They like sort of a sense of community they create within their local business. Other people that are more the digital nomads and that can travel all over like you and run a business without actually needing to be there. And, some people are artisans, and it really is about that manufacturing, creating the product. I think that's what's so beautiful about business is that you get to tap into what your true gifts are, what your passions are, and you can bring them out into the world.
I love that. What's been your favorite business that you've operated?
Gosh, that's really hard. I don't know that I can say that. I love what I'm doing now because, I'm not starting any more businesses at this point. I may do another later on, but now I get to help so many other business owners. I'm living vicariously through them and helping them, direct them to succeed, my team and I. I probably, besides that, I think the homeopathy, because it shaped my life so much and it's just so fascinating. And I always felt that I would treat people and they would get better and then they'd be excited about life again. And then I'd say, they'd say, I don't know what I want to do next. And I'd say, why don't you look at this? And why don't you try it this way? Here's step 1, 2, 3. And they look at me and go, really? Like I could do that? And that was really the evolvement of me realizing that I had something to share as far as helping people to grow their business and create a whole new path for themselves.
Mm-hmm. So tell me about that, because the reason that I'm reading your book, and I broke my rule, I will tell you, Allison, I almost never start reading the book before I interview because I want to ask the beginner types of questions that our audience will likely have. And I didn't break the rule for Dave Asprey, but I broke the rule because I just needed to read your book because I'm in that position. Business grew faster than I knew how to handle, knock on wood. And, just not knowing how to scale it to the next level, barely knowing how to keep it afloat at this level. Tell me about the idea for Scale or Fail and really what the crux of it was. What's the idea? I mean, how do we scale businesses?
Well, just the definition of scale, I think, is a little confusing for people. So I think that's a good place to start. And that would be scaling means that you find a way to take your product and your service and you can duplicate it and then multiply that, replicate it at a larger scale. So instead of being 1-to-1, you go 1-to-many, but without your overhead or your expense growing at the same rate. And so you are multiplying your impact, meaning you're helping a lot more people, and you're multiplying your revenue, your income, with less effort.
Fantastic. It sounds so easy when you describe it that way.
Yeah, well,
it's not.
It's not, but it really isn't that hard, but it's hard to figure out because it's not really explained well. And that's why I wanted to write this book and to give exact steps. And there are so many ways to scale a business. I give 17 different ways to scale in the book. And you don't want to do all 17, just do 1 or 2. But it's really having, a shift, especially for the solopreneur that gets into business and they're just, you run out of bandwidth like I did, running all over the place, trying to take care of all these clients, trying to be superhuman. And I fell apart. That was not scalable. And so figuring out what is going to be the model that is right for you, and then to make that shift. I call it rebuilding your business from a higher level. You don't have to start over, but you need to rebuild, your structure and your foundation and your systems.
Absolutely. And you know what I really love that I would just love for you to share with our audience was the different stages of the business, because it so resonated with me. And I know a lot of people in our audience are interested in entrepreneurship. They're interested in starting businesses. Maybe they're in a business. I mean, everyone is technically in a business because we all have jobs at various different stages. And I would love if you would share that because I just thought it was so insightful.
Well, I realized there are 5 phases that a business needs to go through to create a team managed company. So you can scale your business on the team side, meaning that you build a team and you take yourself out of the day-to-day equation. And you can scale your business on the revenue side, creating a model that will duplicate your product or service on a consistent basis. So on the team side, the phases are as follows. The first phase I call the seeker, and that is you're the solopreneur, you're putting your passion out there, you're excited, you've got things going, you're figuring out your target audience, you're getting some business, but you're doing everything. That's phase 1.
Sounds so familiar.
Yeah, is that something you can relate to?
Oh, yes.
And, a lot of people stay at that phase. And so, but I think it's helpful, Jonathan, knowing the 5 phases because you can see what's next, if that's the direction that you want to go.
Totally. And it really helped me just to be like, oh, you know what? This stage is slowly stopping. And I now know I'm in between stages and that's why it hurts.
Yes. And, every business starts in phase 1. Every business that I've had starts in phase 1. And some people will stay in the phases longer. Some people never leave a certain phase. But you have to go through all of them. You can't really skip a phase. You can't really skip, walking before you run. But phase 1 is the solopreneur. That's the seeker. Phase 2 is the pioneer. And that's where you really, get your hands dirty. You're building a small team. You have maybe an assistant, a bookkeeper, a marketing person, and you're starting to delegate and you're starting to build some systems, but you're still approving everything that goes in and out of your business. And, again, a lot of businesses never leave this place, but it's kind of where I was back then and how I burned out because, if you want to grow to a certain level, there's only so many hours in the day. Mm-hmm. And, for me, I wasn't really sleeping much. That's not smart. And then phase 3, I call the ringleader because it's a circus in phase 3. And so it's kind of unavoidable, but there is a way to optimize that. And I call it a circus because you start to build teams. And whenever you build teams of people, it's like a bunch of families coming together, and it takes time to figure out what are the right roles. What are you really looking for that A player? And it's this rule of hire slowly, fire fast. And that's a tough one. It's probably the hardest thing to do as you grow a team. And we end up keeping people way too long. I was talking to a friend last night about someone that had given a resignation for her company and she was struggling so much with it. And I said, it was a gift that this person gave you because now it's opening up the door for the right person that can take your business to the next level. So, phase 3 really is about learning to shift from being a boss to being a leader, to start letting go, trusting. And that's really challenging because we don't, we're afraid people are going to make mistakes. You probably know what that's like.
Of course.
But, if you're constantly jumping in and rescuing your children for everything, they never figure it out for themselves. So that's the shift that has to happen. You've got to shift from moving from this is exactly what you need to do it exactly like this, to inspiring people into action, inspiring them to own it and to be excited about it, take responsibility. And when that starts happening, you move into phase 4, which I call the co-creator. And that's instead of you being the end all, they start to take ownership and you start to see leaders emerging. And instead of telling them what to do, you say, how would you do it? What do you recommend? Why don't you put a plan together and come back and present it? And you start to see these leaders emerging in your different teams, and they can make these key decisions. Mm-hmm. They ask powerful questions. How do we increase profits? How do we create a better customer experience? And in this phase, you start to let go. You let them run it. You let them make these key decisions. And you're needed less and less. I have clients going, Alice, I don't know what to do with myself now. So that's a big change. And then you move into phase 5, which I call the visionary. And this is really where you have to trust and step back. And even though you can add your 2 cents, you need to keep your mouth shut, which is not always so easy because they've got it. They've got it. And you can go on and do your next thing.
Yeah, as we say in Hebrew, from your mouth to God's ear. That's the dream, but so few entrepreneurs and businesses actually make it to that level.
Yeah, my dad used to say that all the time.
It's not easy. So, Allison, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about Scale or Fail. I mean, we've talked about it a bit, but as I said, I'm reading the book. I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying your writing style as well, because I think a person in your position could very easily talk down to the reader, and you've made it really fun and really approachable. And, you make it sound like something anyone can do, scale a business. You just got to put in the work.
Thank you. I'm really glad you're enjoying the book. It's been exciting for me, the response that the book is getting, and people are really enjoying it. They're telling me they're like highlighting all these pages, and it's become their business Bible. I wanted it to be something engaging. I didn't want it to feel like a textbook, because there's some books, they're great books out there on scaling. This was the only one written by a woman, so I'm kind of proud of that. But I wanted something that you could really immerse yourself in, that you really get. And so that's lots of examples, lots of stories of how others have done it so you can apply it. I think business, let's make it simple. There's already so many things in life that are complicated, Jonathan. So I like to really give people the step by step.
I really love that. So where can people get this book? I imagine it's everywhere books are sold.
It's everywhere books are sold. If you go to scaleorfail.com, you can get some awesome bonus gifts. We have a quick start guide, which is kind of like the Cliff Notes. There's some video trainings and audio trainings as well that go with the book. So those are my gifts to anyone that wants them. Of course, you can get it on Amazon and so forth as well. And yeah, I'm just excited to get this out to as many people as I can. This is my legacy book. And I just feel that business owners are the change makers of the world. And it's, my way of helping to elevate consciousness through business, through, the innovators, the inventors in our health systems, our environment, in technology. Business owners are the inventors. And so if I can help them get their message out in a much bigger way, then I feel like I've done my part.
I love it. Allison, I want to let you go, but first I want to hit you with some rapid fire performance questions just to tick off the box of understanding how you perform at such a high level. As you said, you like to perform at a high level and run at that pace. Can you share with me any of the skills, strategies, habits, things that you do outside of homeopathy that keep you performing at a very high level?
Well, one thing is my sleep. I'm a night owl, so I used to be really bad, going to bed at 1 or 2 and operating on like 5 hours of sleep, which just doesn't work well with me. And so over the last few years, I really focus on getting 8 hours of sleep. So the only way I will stay up late is if I know I can really sleep in the morning, because that's where your brain regenerates, your cells regenerate. So it seems so simple, but it's not. It means turn off the technology and allow yourself to calm down. And then I allow myself thinking time. And that means I mark out periods in my week just to sit and think, which sounds kind of strange, but that's where I can solve some of my bigger challenges and just give my mind a bit of a rest. I exercise. I'm headed to the gym in just a little bit. And I've worked out with the same trainer for like 20 years.
Wow.
And I can't imagine if I was just sitting behind the computer and was not moving my body, I would be like, bent over and in pain. So that helps me to stay resilient, because stuff happens. Even though you run a business for 30 years, doesn't mean that you're not going to be faced with challenges, obstacles, things that break down, things that don't go as you hope. And then you have to take care of your body. You have to keep yourself resilient so that it can roll off your back instead of consume you.
I love that. Any strength or fitness tips for people who want to get on the trapeze like you do?
Yeah. Well, I would say it doesn't have to be trapeze. It could be whatever it is that you wanted to do. I think for me, trapeze really is every time I climb that ladder, I'm challenging myself. I'm stretching myself. I'm taking myself to a higher level, literally. And so that helps me on the ground. So if you have fear of something that you're facing now, do something scarier. Do that scarier thing when you get back on the ground and you face whatever it is you're worried about. All of a sudden, that's like, I can handle it.
That's a fantastic suggestion to end on. Allison, I want to thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom with us. I'm going to let you get off to the gym today, but before I let you go, I want to ask you, if people take away one important message from this episode and carry it with them for the rest of their lives, what would you hope for that to be?
So I have a saying that I think about every day, and it goes like this: make decisions from where you're going, not from where you're at.
That's a fantastic one.
Yeah, don't look at what your circumstances are and say, I can't do it because. Think about where it is you want to be in 3 years. What would be the ideal scenario for your business and your life and how you spend your time? And pretend that you're there already. You have to kind of play tricks with your mind. But if you were there right now, what kind of decisions would you make? And you make them from that place and you hold that vision, and then things start to change rapidly in your favor.
It is so true. And that's been one of my biggest learning lessons from doing 200 plus episodes of the show is if you want to be something, you have to act the way that the person who has that or is that already acts.
Yes, exactly.
I love it. Allison, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you in Phoenix.
Definitely. Thanks. This was so much fun, Jonathan. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you as well. Take care.
Bye.
All right, Super Friends, that is all we have for you today. But I hope you guys really enjoyed the show, and I hope you learned a ton of actionable information, tips, advice that will help you go out there and overcome the impossible. If you've enjoyed the show, please take a moment to leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher, or drop us a quick little note on the Twitter machine at GoSuperhuman. Also, if you have any ideas for anyone out there who you would love to see on the show, we always love to hear your recommendations. You can submit on our website, or you can just drop us an email and let us know. That's all for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in to the Becoming Superhuman podcast. For more great skills and strategies, or for links to any of the resources mentioned in this episode, visit www.becomingasuperhuman.com/podcast. We'll see you next time.